Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going to be making an elevator. No, don't click off yet. I promise you, it's going to be interesting. So my friend said, make an elevator. And I just started thinking like, okay, a platform going up and down, that can't be too fucking hard, right? So I decided to take it to the next level a little bit. If you can look on the right side here, you have all these options. So you basically have your elevator door speed, you have your offsets for the buttons, you can change your mesh for your buttons, of course, and also the mesh for the elevator. You do that inside the blueprint though, not here. You can also change the number of floors, the floor height, so the height between the floors, the speed that the elevator goes in, the control panel, so that's the panel inside of the elevator, like the offsets there. You can change how many buttons are on each line, the offsets of the buttons, the depth of the buttons. And yeah, so basically, let's do a little test. So I'm going to set up, this is going to be a ridiculous number, but it automatically generates everything. So I'm going to set up 5,000 floors. You're never going to do this, so it's going to look completely shit with the control panel, because it does generate those as well. So let us hit play and let it generate. So currently it has generated. You can see all the buttons up there. It goes up 5,000. If I go into the elevator, there we have our control panel. That looks like absolute dog shit. But as I said, you will never use 5,000 regardless. Let's go up to 6. Elevator closes. It starts moving. We're lagging because of, 5,000 pieces over here. Don't use 5,000 pieces. And now we're up in the air. I do believe I'm not casting shadow on that in there, so I think that is why we're doing this. Okay, but here's our buttons, by the way, the thing causing our lag. Yeah, doesn't look too good. But this is our, so basically all the way up, it generates these buttons on each of the floors. So now I can call it down again from the top, from the floor that it was at. Jesus Christ, the buttons are horrible though. Oh my god. Just I need to prove that it's not fucking. So I'm gonna do 50 instead. So here you can basically just change the offset to however you want, right? So I'm not going to do too much of that right now. But I'm going to change the max horizontal to maybe 4, so we can see how that looks. It's getting there. It's not perfect, but you can change it however you want. A lot of customizability. And also, before we start, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry if I sound a bit weird. I am currently sick, and yeah, but I still wanted to do this video, so let us just get started. So I'm going to make a new folder first of all. It's going to go on my elevator system. Set the color to green, as I do with all my starters. Inside here, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this one my meshes. Then I'm going to make 2 subfolders, one called elevator and one called elevator button. I'm going to go into my elevator button and I'm going to import my elevator mesh that I made in, well, it's a shitty mesh, but it's a mesh that we're going to use regardless. Let me see if I can get that working. There we go. And then I'm going to quickly rename to have the correct prefixes. So SM for static mesh, M for materials. I'm just going to head into my mesh elevator and I'm going to search up collision, top right. And I'm going to set up project defaults. I'm going to set it to complex collision as simple. Now, save that and close out. Now I can go back into my elevator button folder and I'm going to import my elevator button mesh. Once again, I'm going to set the prefixes like so. And again, I'm going to go into this, search up collision complexity, set it to complex collisions as simple. And I can close out of that. Now inside of my elevator systems folder, I can make a new blueprint. It's going to be an actor. It's going to be my BP elevator. Open that up and dock it. Now that I'm in my BP elevator, I'm going to set up well, first of all, I'm going to set up a static mesh. I'm going to call it my elevator mesh. It's going to be my SM underscore elevator 3. And this is our little elevator. I'm also going to set up a arrow component. This one is going to be called my button arrow. This will serve as a starting position for some of our buttons. I'm just going to place it over here. Then I'm going to hold down control and press D to duplicate. I'm going to call this one my control panel arrow. And I'm going to try to get that in the center a little bit. So 0 there. And I'm going to go all the way back leaving the base exposed like so. That is where our control panel will go. This will also be a bit dark, so I'm going to add a point light inside here. I'm not going to do too much with it. I am, however, going to have one. Maybe set the intensity down to like 1000. Like so. I'm also going to add 2 more static meshes. This one I'm going to use called door 1. It's going to be an SM cube. I'm using the SM cube instead of the primitives up here so that I can have the anchor point here without having to actually change that. And that will be useful in a minute, as you'll see. So I'm going to place it here on the right side first. And this is going to be a little bit fiddly. But if you now hold down, click R for a second, you can now scale it, and this is going to be our door, right? I'm now going to Control C, Control V to duplicate. Rotate this 180. Move it back. Check that it's roughly same position. This is going to be a bit awkward, so let us actually go down to 5. And that's it for that. Now we need to scale this up, so maybe 125. That's way too much. 1.1. And the other one as well, 1.1. We rotate it around, because then we get our new anchor point, and we can now scale it like that. Select it, and go up until you reach the ceiling. That's a 275 scale. Like so. And that's our doors. What we're going to do now is go into our content drawer again. I'm going to make it a blueprint class. This is going to be my, it's going to be an actor. It's going to be my BP underscore elevator call button. Open that up. It will contain a static mesh, which we will call call button start pause position. I'm going to set it to the button that we have. However, I'm also going to hide, so hidden in game. And I'm also going to set the visibility to be blank. And I might as well also set the collision to no collision. That is it for that. Now I'm going to make some variables. I'm going to make, first one I'm going to make it that we're going to duplicate later. So I'm going to do a call button vert offset. It's going to be a float. It's going to be editable and exposed on spawn. Now we're going to hold that, select it and hold down D to duplicate. This is going to be our hor offset, so horizontal offset. Do the same again. It'll be our depth offset. And we're going to do it again, and this is going to be our call button mesh. Actually, no, we're not going to do that here, are we? Yeah, we are. Call button mesh. That's going to be a static mesh object reference. And I think that is all we need to do right now over here. We're going into our event graph and we're killing everything in there. I'm going to make a new custom event. It's going to be called spawn button. Now spawn button will have an input of a type name, and it's going to be our floor value. I'm going to promote that and set it. Then we're going to add a static mesh component. Now I'm doing it like this because I don't want it to be filled with blueprints. I rather want the components themselves and to avoid populating too many blueprints. That is why we're doing it like this. I'm going to grab my call button start position. I'm going to get the relative transform of that, plug that into my static mesh component. Now my static mesh component, you can select that, and now we're going to set the static mesh component up here. That's going to be my button, elevator button. We can right click our return value, call this our call button ref, and we're actually going to drag that out a little bit, and out from this return node, we're going to set static mesh. Plug it in like so. Actually, let's move it up like this instead. And what are we going to set the mesh to? Well, we're going to set it to the mesh that we are defining when we are creating. So you can have any mesh you want as the button. Let's comment this out.
Promote the tag value for later use. Add the static mesh component at our start plus transform. Set the mesh to the player defined one, then ref to that as well.
Once we're done with that, we're going to set the location of the floor button. In order to do this, we're going to get our call button mesh. Why am I calling it that? There we go. Call button ref, sorry. We get our call button ref. Going to set relative location. I'm going to split open the location. I'm going to get my relative transform over here. And I'm going to break this transform to expose the underlying pins. Then I'm going to break the location. So now we have access to that. Then I want to do x minus the depth offset. Because remember, we're currently going on the x-axis. Can't actually see that. There we go. So that's going to be our depth. In the way I've set this up, at least. Might be different for you. That's our x. And that obviously means that our y is our horizontal offset. The reason we're doing it like this is so that you can manipulate this to however you want it to be, basically. And our Z value, which is up and down, our vertical, I'm going to set that to negative the vertical offset, but also add a new variable, which we're going to call button height. It'll be a float. And honestly, I do not know if we actually need this. Because currently it's set to 0. Let's add it anyway. Yeah, we do need it actually. Yeah, of course we do. So we're going to do our offset plus the call button height. And that is going to be our Z value. We're then going into our call button ref. Now, seeing as we don't have a blueprint that we can access, basically, we want to do this with, well, I'm going to do it with component tags. I'm going to set component tags. That's going to give you the ability to make array. Like so. And I'm going to call the first, well, I'm going to have two entries. So I'm going to call the first entry elevator call button. And the second entry is going to be our floor value that we promoted at the very start. Once this is done, now we're going back to this call button height, right? We can set our call button height to call button height plus. We also need a reference to the elevator. So let's add that. Elevator ref type BP elevator object reference editable and exposed and spawn. Get that elevator ref. Get the, well, actually, do we have the floor height yet? No, we do not. Let's go into our elevator again for a second. Make a new variable. It's going to be called floor height. It's going to be a float. It's going to be exposed and editable. It's going to be put in the category of floors. Then we can go into our call button again. We can get the floor height and we're going to addition this like so. And that's it for that. Now we can comment this out.
Set the location of the floor button to the defined one with offset. Add the new component tags, and finally increase the height to the next floor value.
Hopefully that makes sense to y'all. Can't really guarantee anything. But believe it or not, that is actually it for our elevator call button. Now let's go back into our BP elevator. And on our BP elevator, on begin play, I'm going to kill these two down there. We're going to do a spawn actor from class. Actor is going to be our call button. And now we need to get these values. So first of all, the button arrow. We're going to get the world transform. Actually, could have just gotten the location. But we're going to get the transform. Actually, I did think I had an issue with this. So let's get the transform and just do it like this. And now let us promote these. So the vert offset, promote that. Make it exposed and editable. The horizontal, exposed, editable. The depth, exposed, editable. The call button mesh, exposed, editable. And our elevator ref is our self. Now we also want to categorize these. So I'm just going to select one of them and I'm going to set it to call button. And then we can just move the rest of them over into call button. Not the self, obviously, because that's not like that. Okay. Now we got a call button section here. Awesome. Yeah, let's call it that. Fuck it. I don't care. Now we've got to promote this as well. And this is going to be our call elevator call button ref. Now we're going to compile. We're going to go back to our content drawer. We're going to make a new blueprint class actor. Going to be my BP underscore control panel. Open that up. In here, we are going to have some variables once again. The first one, I'm going to have first one is going to be a float. I'm going to call it my control panel button offset. I'm going to put it in a category of control panel buttons. Going to be exposed and editable. Then let's go into our event graph. Actually, let's go into our... Let's just add a static mesh here. Could do an arrow. I'm just going to do a mesh of a cube. It does not matter at all. It's going to be hidden regardless. And also no collision. And this is going to be our start position. Now let's go into our event graph. Go into our begin play. Going to get our control panel button offset. Going to promote that to a cache of that. We are going to manipulate this later. We need a way to reset it again as well. Then we're going to make a new variable. It's going to be our max horizontal buttons. Now this is going to be an integer. Editable, exposed on spawn. It's going to go into control panel buttons. And we're going to do the same thing here. Going to promote this to a variable. And we're going to call this our cache. Then we're going to get our start position. Get the relative transform of that. Promote that to a variable. And this is going to be our start transform. And we can comment this.
Cache the information, as we will be using it to both increase based on number of lines, etc., but also because we need to reset it back at times, reset it at times back to default.
This is where things are going to get a little bit strange, because I'm going to be using a for loop that starts at 1 and not 0, and I'm also going to be making up for that fact later on down the road. I did end up using it like this so that we could get the correct numbers and stuff. There was something about it. I don't exactly remember it currently. Make it a variable. It's going to be our number of floors. It's going to be exposed and editable. I'm going to get that number of floors. Going to do a for loop where that is our last index and we start at 1, as I said previously. Going to promote the index to current line value. It's going to be horrible naming conventions in this entire series. I apologize for that. And then we're going to get our current line value. Check if that is greater than our max horizontal buttons. Like so. Actually comment this as well.
Take our numbers of floors integer. On each path, set the current line value, aka the floor number, and check if the floor number is greater than our max core buttons variable.
If it is, we'll jump to the next line. I'm going to make a new variable. It's going to be called my new line value. It's going to be a float. And then I'm also going to make another float, which is going to be my control panel button distance between horizontal. It's going to be editable and exposed to spawn. I'm going to duplicate that. Call it vert for vertical. Now over on true, I'm going to get my new line value. I'm going to add it with my vertical. Add it to my vertical. Or add them two together rather. And then add that into our new line value. So are we greater? Are we going to pass jump lines? Then do this. Set the new value over here. And then we're going to get our control panel button offset. We're going to set that to our... where's our cache? There's our cache. We'll set our offset back to our cache. Then we're going to set our max horizontal buttons to max horizontal plus the cache, max horizontal buttons cache. And that is it for our true section. We can comment this out.
We reached the max number of horizontal. We set our float to a variable we define. That tells it how big a part it should be. We also reset our button offset using our cache. Then increase our max core buttons to fit our new scheme.
That is... I'm sorry, I'm going to blame my sickness for this, because this makes no sense. Hopefully you understand it a little bit. I am even having troubles understanding myself at this point. Okay, let's continue. So we're going to add a static mesh component. This component will be our button. And we will plug both of these. So the false goes into there directly, the true goes up before it comes down again. Where are we going to start it? We're going to start it at the start transform. Then we're going to promote this to a variable. It's going to be our button mesh comp ref. Out from this, we're going to set component tags. We're going to make array, same as before. However, this time we are calling it our elevator button. And the other pin is our current line value. So now we're adjusting for the fact that we started at 1. Now we're jumping down again. And we need to convert this to I believe it's a name, into string maybe. There we go. And then we can go into name. So now we have the tags set up as well.
Add the mesh component button. Set the ref and proceed to add the tags required later to the array.
Once we have done this, we can now get our button mesh comp ref. We can set the relative location of that. Expand this or split it. Control panel button offset. Do control panel button offset minus. And now we need to get our start transform. We can just split that right away and then split the location. So this one should go into our Y, I believe. Don't know why it started up there. That goes into our Y at least. The X goes directly. We're not going to fuck with it. And the Z is going to be subtracting the new line value. That is our C. Then we want to get our control panel button offset. I'm going to set that to our control panel button offset minus the horizontal value that we made previously.
We set the correct location of the mesh component we just made to the new information. Then we increase our button offset so it's ready for the next pass.
So this is all fine and dandy. This is the control panel. Inside of my call button are we... yeah, so now we can get our elevator ref. Do we have an elevator ref here? It doesn't look like it. Elevator ref of type BP elevator. Exposed to spawn. We can get that. We can get our elevator call button. Now we can call our function that we made previously, spawn button. And now it needs the value that we set. So the value is of course our, well, this one right here. Let's also try to do something that might not look good at all, but we're going to add a text render component. Again, I don't want to use blueprints. If we use blueprints, and then we would have maybe, 40 different blueprints when we could just add components instead. So that is my firm belief at the moment. I'm going to get my button mesh comp. This one. I'm going to get the relative location. I'm going to split the relative location, and now we're just going to have to play a little bit. So on my text render component here, I'm going to leave it as text, doesn't matter for me. I'm going to set the world size down to 4. Now I'm going to set it to a line in the center, then a line in the center. I'm going to split open the relative transform. Once you split it open, now we need to play a little bit. So I'm just going to actually just plug it in all right now, because we might want to have to adjust this later anyway. And then we can set the text, not the material, sorry. Set the text, get this one, do a to text name, and then to string in order to do a to integer, string to integer. And now we need to also go up again over on this. It's a bit wonky, I apologize. Okay, so that's it for our control panel. Let's go back to our elevator for a second. And now we can call our spawn, control spawn actor, spawn our BP control panel, the transform that we're going to spawn it on. We're going to get our control panel arrow. I'm going to get the world location of that. I'm going to split this open. And then I'm going to do a X plus, and then we need the call button. No, not that one. We need more variables for this. So we're gonna make a new float. It's gonna be our control panel vert offset. It's gonna be in the category of control panel. It's gonna be editable and exposed to spawn. Then we can add a horizontal offset. And then finally we can add a depth offset. Yeah, that's okay. We're going to split this open. Get the location, split the location. So the first one is going to be our depth, because that's our X value. Second one is going to be our horizontal, so it's going to be Y plus horizontal offset. And the third one is going to be our vertical offset, so vert plus, the C plus, sorry, vertical. So this goes into the respective fields. And now we need to promote these again. So this is our control button offset. I'm going to just promote it to that. I'm going to give it a category of elevator control panel. Exposed and editable. Max button, same thing. Expose, editable, elevator control panel. Number of floors, promote. Expose, editable, and this one is going to floors. And then the distance variables are going to the elevator control panel, editable, and the final one. Elevator control panel, editable. Just double checking that everything's fine. Floors, editable, yeah, everything should be fine there. Elevator ref is ourselves still. Now, this one, we want to be able to follow the elevator though. So we do need to actually attach actor to actor. So when the elevator goes up, we want this to join. Parent actor is ourselves. We also want to keep world over on the rules. Like so.